Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Hayes, your host, and as Forest signed Nikola Milenkovic last week, there has been lots of talk and discussion about him and what he can bring to this Forest side. He's joined the side in pre-season as they continue their preparations for the new Premier League campaign in Spain. Delighted to say we're joined by Italian football experts. That's what I'm going to call him, if that's all right. Carlo Garganese, who has joined us on the podcast, someone that has followed Milenkovic very closely and knows quite a bit about Serie A and everything like that. I suppose, really, first of all, a bit of a in your opinion, someone that follows Serie A quite closely, how does that compare to the Premier League? What are the difference in leagues really like?
I think traditionally there's always been a difference in speed in the Premier League. The Premier League's a lot more intense, a lot more physical, a lot more, let's say, blood and thunder. Obviously, football's changed. And, traditionally, if you go back 20, 30 years, the Serie A was the best league in the world. Now, the Premier League is the best league in the world. Premier League is the league that has the money. And that's where most of the best players generally are attracted to the Premier League today than the Serie A. So, but if we're talking about the actual football, I would say that the difference in speed, the difference in physicality, and just the speed that the game is played at, I think is the biggest difference between the leagues now.
Let's just kind of start on Milenkovic. Obviously comes from Fiorentina, highly rated, obviously did really well for Serbia in the Euros. What have you made of him as a player? Kind of just give us maybe a brief overview of Milenkovic.
Yeah, I think he's a very solid defender. His strengths are probably aerially. He's absolutely fantastic. He's 6'5". He's a monster in the air. You'd have to double check the stats, but he's certainly one of the best in Europe in terms of, if you look at his aerial stats, the number of balls he wins in the air. He's always, for year after year, he's always been among the top 3 to 5 in Serie A for winning aerial duels, winning the percentage of aerial duels. He's brilliant in the air. And as a result of that, he's very, very strong on set pieces in both boxes. He's a threat from corners going up the other end, and also defending his own box, defending crosses, defending corners, set pieces. I know that Forest have had a bit of a problem with that this past season from conceding off set pieces. So I think definitely he will help in that regard. He's an aggressive defender. He's a physical defender, so I don't think he will have any problems adjusting physicality of the Premier League, which can sometimes be a problem from players from other leagues, including Serie A. One thing I would say is, though, maybe when he first joined Fiorentina, which is quite a long time ago now, he was heralded as as kind of like the next big thing, really, from Serbia. Serbia have had some fantastic centre-backs in over the last 20, 30 years. I mean, he was seen as kind of like the next in line, really, from Serbia. He never really fulfilled his potential to go to that level, because talking 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was kind of expected in Serie A that he would join an Inter, a Milan, a Juventus. And Inter especially and Juventus were very, very interested in him, 2, 3 years ago. He never really managed to become that defender that was expected of him at the beginning of his career. That doesn't mean that he's not still a good defender. He is. He's a very good, very solid defender. But he hasn't reached those those big heights that were kind of expected of him.
Yeah, and I suppose when you followed him closely, did you always think from a young age, albeit still quite young, that he would end up in the Premier League? Do you think it was, someone you could almost see him fitting into a Premier League side straight away? And a lot of people have held this as a great piece of business with Forest, and I think many other clubs have been linked with him recently as well. I think the likes of Everton and West Ham had some interest in him. So, Forest have beat Premier League rivals to this guy. And I suppose, do you think he will fit into the Premier League? And it's probably maybe a bit of a goal of his as a player to play in the Premier League?
I think now, today, 2024, I think it's the goal of all players to play in the Premier League. Financially, it's the league to go. Obviously, money is for most footballers is the most important thing now. Whether they want to admit it or not, it is. But footballers only have a very short career. They want to maximise their earnings. The Premier League pays the best, unless you're going to go to Saudi Arabia. So players, will want to come to the Premier League for that. But also, from a sporting point of view, the Premier League is the best league certainly in terms of competitiveness. Like, teams like Forest, the equivalent of Forest in, say, Serie A or La Liga, the chances of them really being able to battle it out, with some of the big boys, it's not there. So I think that is an attraction comes to the Premier League, being able to have that competitive nature of the Premier League. Because for that reason, I definitely thought, a potential move to the Premier League was possible. If you become one of the best in your position, which he hasn't become, but if we thought he would become, then a potential Premier League move is definitely on the cards.
And you mentioned just kind of before that answer as well about Forest and set pieces. It's been an issue that Forest have really, really struggled with this last season and I think almost for many years, even before Forest got promoted to the Premier League. But it's been a real problem. This is a player, Milenkovic, you said he's good aerially and he might just sort out Forest's set piece problem maybe.
I don't know if he'll sort it out all on his own, but I think he will definitely help. Look at his stats. He wins everything. Not that too many teams go long with goal kicks anymore, but if you put a goal, he wins everything. He'll win virtually every single header from a long ball or a goal kick. He's a monster. He's an absolute monster in the air. So there's no doubt that he will. And maybe that's. You'll probably know better than me. Maybe that's why you've gone for him. Maybe you thought that we need somebody to improve us aerially. So, and I do think actually, you did kind of allude to it before. I do think I think is it £12 million?
Yeah, 12 million.
That's good business for a player with his experience. Won over 50 caps for Serbia. He's played so many years in Serie A. I think you can't go wrong for £12 million. I think that's great. I think that's great business. Even if it doesn't quite work out, it's I won't call it. It's not a gamble, but it's what I mean. It's not going to hurt you too much if it doesn't work out financially. So I think it's a great deal financially.
And just looking at his stats, actually, tackle success rate of 75%. I did see a few things on social media that someone labelled him as a big yellow card merchant. Is he a player that can get booked quite a lot?
I think so, yeah, because he's quite aggressive. He's very aggressive in the challenge. He's up at you in your face, and he tries to feel the defender and tries to pressurize them, and so I think we will see a lot of interesting duels with strikers with Milenkovic. He probably will get quite a few yellow cards, but I don't think there's any concern from that area with him. That's his strong side of his game, the aggressive nature of him. Maybe if we're talking weaknesses, I don't think he's the quickest. I don't think he's slow, but I don't think he's the quickest. Because he's so big. Maybe on the turn, maybe. Not so quick, but that's natural for a player of his size. I think he's not elite in terms of his players running at him one-on-one and when the game is open. But I think defending the old-fashioned defending your box, defending crosses into the box, winning your personal duel with your opponent, your direct opponent. I think that's where he's strong, and we saw it. Against Harry Kane. I know Harry Kane was terrible against pretty much every defender in the year, so maybe that's not much. You should overpraise him for that. But he was very good, like you said. He was very good in the Euros, even though they went out first round. He was excellent actually in the group stage. Probably one of the best defenders in the group stage, and he completely dominated Kane. And if you watch the game again, you'll see what I'm talking about: the aggressive nature, how he was up in Kane. Kane couldn't turn, and he was winning the ball first. He was nipping in there, getting the ball. Giving them a little nudge. He's quite smart like that, pushing the attacker around. So I think he'll be good in that respect.
With Fiorentina, in terms of the standout memories, obviously they weren't a side that have always been at the top end of the Serie A. But in terms of maybe standout memories from his career, can you kind of remember any kind of watching him and just following Serie A quite closely?
I'm not sure if I could pick out a standout memory, but what I would say is that Fiorentina got to 2 European finals in a row, the Conference League final. They lost one to West Ham, and then they lost the last one to Olympiacos, which was really disappointing for Fiorentina because, they were the favourites to win that game, and really, it was quite sad that this team didn't manage to win anything. But he was absolutely brilliant in that final for Fiorentina. He was faultless. Like the rest of the Fiorentina team didn't turn up. He was fantastic. He won everything. He didn't give his direct opponent a kick until they scored in 5 minutes from the end of extra time on a play in which he'd saved a goal on the first ball that came into the box. He saved a goal. Then it came back in and they scored. He was brilliant in that game. So that's coming to me as kind of like him playing brilliantly on a big occasion. And he has experience in big games as well. 2 finals, played in Euros, World Cups. So he's got the experience for sure.
You think he shows almost the leadership qualities that Forest might need, or potentially even any Premier League side? You need leaders and specifically at the back to control that defensive line.
I think so. Yeah, I think he definitely has leadership qualities. That's for sure. He's definitely one of those where if the going's tough, he'll stand up. He won't shy away. There's different types of characters, isn't there? It's easy when you're winning, but when you're losing, who are the players that are going to roll up their sleeves and fight? And he is a fighter, so I think he will. And I like Murillo as well. So that would be an interesting partnership between the two of them. One other strength I should have mentioned about Milenkovic, he's quite a good long passer, switcher of the play. His short passing game maybe not so strong, but he's he likes to. I don't know if Forest would play that way, but he's very good at switching the play, kind of long diagonal balls. He's one of the better kind of long passers in that respect. That's a kind of a quirk of his game. Short passing maybe not so good, but long passes he picks out a pass.
And how would he compete against the likes of the big boys, almost in the Serie A, like Inter Milan and Juventus? He wouldn't shy away from those, and he was always competitive.
Yeah, he was always competitive. I think he's a lot of the Fiorentina defenders in the last 2 years, or 3 years actually. He was hung out to dry a little bit by the way that their manager Vincenzo Italiano left. He's left now and he's gone to Bologna. But he was a very ultra attacking manager. They used to press really high, and they used to sometimes man mark, and they used to really leave themselves very exposed at the back on the counter attack. And that's difficult for any defender, and it's especially difficult for someone like Milenkovic, who, as I said, he's not the quickest on the turn, and he's not really lightning fast, not slow, but not when you've got to cover that ground and you're left exposed. It's not easy. And Fiorentina conceded, too many goals because of Italiano's style of play. So, I'm not sure whether you guys will play high, hope you will play a high line or a medium block or a low block. He's probably, maybe better suited for a medium or a lower block, I would say, because of his aerial qualities. But he's, I think he was a little bit. It would be unfair to judge him based on all the goals that Fiorentina have conceded over the last few years because of the way that the manager played.
Do you think you'll be following Forest maybe closely, Carlo, now that Milenkovic is there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I always follow all the kind of the Serie A players that come to the Premier League. On my podcast, the Italian Football Podcast, we always try and talk a little bit about kind of like Serie A related or Italian related players that are playing in, well, certainly in the Premier League, because there's a lot more interest there. So yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on Milenkovic, and hopefully does a good job for you guys, and you guys have a good season.
Fingers crossed. Carlo, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. And as you just mentioned there as well, I'd be sure to check out the Italian Football Podcast. Very, very good. If you're a big fan of the Serie A and you want to add it to your podcast listens, then we highly recommend it. And thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. If you did enjoy this episode of Garibaldi Red, give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us across Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We will see you very soon. Bye-bye.